like to welcome you to our Client Success webinar series. This is our weekly Tuesday webinars. My name is Dave Blake. I'm the founder and CEO of Client Success. I'm so thrilled to be back with everybody. Thanks for joining us again. This is always my favorite time of the week to be here. I am thrilled to welcome my good friend Donna Weber here to talk about customer onboarding and accelerating time to value. Donna has been a thought leader for so many years and is well known as the, I would say, queen of onboarding. I don't know if that's the right way, but the foremost thought leader in customer onboarding and customer valuation realization. Donna, thanks for joining me today. How are you today?
Oh, Dave, thank you for being a good friend and colleague and for including me and for everyone for joining. I know it's that busy time of the year trying to just fit in one more thing. So thank
Yeah.
you for fitting us into your day today.
Yes, it's a great time of year. Things are winding down, but I think all of our minds are like, all right, what are we going to do in 2025? And I think this topic is really relevant to think about how we up level onboarding, how we drive quick time to value, and help our customers find that value they're looking at, the value realization that they expect from our platform. So,
Shall we dive in?
yeah, let's dive in.
Great. So I've got some content to share. First, I have some questions for you. So type in the chat. Do you have a definition of first value at your company and with your product? So type in the chat if you, yes or no, if you have a definition of first value. We'll see what you've got to say. So we're getting lots of yeses, some no's. Great.
So
Okay.
if you have a yes, maybe type your definition.
Yeah, type in. First login, a kind of, curious to know more. So if you do have a definition for first value, do you measure the time it takes to reach first value? And so type in yes or no. And then if you do measure, how long does it take to reach first value?
I like this one. Kareem says value is a quick win that aligns with the customer needs. That's
Great. Yeah,
Kareem.
maybe we could chat more about that one.
Yeah.
And then we got Jennifer saying the first data insight within 30 days, 30 to 60 days. Great. So I would say quick wins. I actually talk about quick wins and first value. Quick wins, I would say, would be in days or in days. So Claudia, I'm curious to learn more about what that is. And then first value, I would say ideally within the first 30 to 60 days. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. So let's dive in. We're going to talk, I'm going to present some concepts and Dave and I are going to share a conversation, and then we welcome your questions and comments as well. So, okay, imagine summiting Everest. Has anyone done here some major mountain climbing and summiting? I was just in Japan and I didn't do any major summiting, but we climbed up over some passes in the snow. But you take in the amazing views, you plant your country's flag, you take your selfies, and you celebrate, right? Because you reach the summit. But the reality is you're only halfway there, because descending Everest is the most important part and the most dangerous part of the journey, with more than 50% of all deaths happening after people summit. And if you read the book Into Thin Air, you learn, which I highly recommend. John Krakauer summited Everest on a gorgeous day, but then a storm came in and took out more than half of the group that he was with. So in a similar way, we focus on, our companies may focus about acquiring customers, but you're only halfway there, because after the contract is signed is really the most important part and the most dangerous part of the journey, because it costs your company a lot of money to acquire customers. It also costs a lot of money to implement your product and onboard your customers. And so if customers, leave during this most important time, this is like the death zone on Everest. If they leave during this important time, then your customers and your company are in big trouble. So we're going to dive into that. Anything you want to add there, Dave?
No, I think we're good.
So this is what we'll be focusing on. So by the end of this session, you will be able to explain what first value is and why it's critical to long-term success. Avoid some onboarding pitfalls like the trough of disillusionment. And we'll talk about proven techniques to keep your customers engaged and moving toward value, and learn how to sidestep the dreaded first value cliff. So let's start off with what is first value and why is it important? So value means the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. And I put this gold nugget here because there's a lot of things you can do with gold, right? I can melt it and make some stunning jewelry. I could turn it into gold bars. I could turn it into coins. But unless I can really do something with it, it provides no value. Like, let's say I stole this gold nugget, but the minute I did anything with it, I would be caught and convicted. So it actually will provide no value to me unless I can do something with it, right? So, so in the same way with your product, even when you go live, unless your customers can do something that is meaningful, that is useful for them, then that isn't really value. You might have a box you're checking that say, yes, value, but it needs to be value for your customers, from your customer perspective. So first value is the moment when customers first realize value from your product. It might be a magic or aha moment. And I like to look at first value. Is there something that you can deliver even before your whole product is implemented? So let's say it takes 6 months to implement your product. What is some value that you can start delivering customers so they're thrilled that they purchased your product and not just sitting around in what we call the trough of disillusionment? We'll talk about that shortly. Sit around hoping, worrying, and wondering. And we'll dive more into that. But the thing is, value is so important because neurologically, all people are wired to resist. So you might sell something new and the buyers are excited, maybe the CTO, the CFO, the buyers see all this possibility, but the users might resist you every step of the way. And they don't trust you. So until you deliver some meaningful value, they are going to be wired to resist. And I'm going to go through this quickly so we can chat with Dave. But what happens is that people are wired to resist with confirmation bias. They like to stay with what's familiar. So likely they're going to be resist and want to stay with their legacy tools, which might be pen and paper, which might be spreadsheets. They might be suffering from buyer's remorse, and they might be stuck in worrying and doubt about, oh God, what have I done? This is going to be a big mess. So we need to deliver value because it builds trust. And, first impressions matter. That's when we need to build trusting relationships with customers. The sales reps do this amazing job during the buyer journey, and marketing does this amazing job to build trust, to build relationship collateral throughout that sales and buyer journey. So as soon as the customer buys, we really need to make sure we are instilling trust, delivering some morsels of value, and then morsels of value create some cognitive closure, which helps people see that they're on to the next part of the journey, which is the customer journey, and we're developing great relationships with them. So I'm just going to pause there. Yeah. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Dave, about first value. What have you seen worked? What have you seen not work? And how do you start delivering first value at ClientSuccess?
Yeah, just a couple thoughts that I have is that I think sometimes we confuse value with logging in or go live. Logging in and just using the platform isn't necessarily value. Maybe you log in and you see a dashboard for the first time of data that provides value, but do we confuse that sometimes, Donna, of just time to go live versus time to value? Is that a
oh, absolutely. So time to go live is not time to value. Just because I have a login does not mean that value is delivered. And I do believe in the world of B2B technology, the focus is often on the product and not on the people. So in order to build trust, we're working with people who have brains that are wired to resist, right? So who are going to be in that rumination, who are going to be worrying. So we have to deliver meaningful value, and we'll talk much more about that.
Yeah, that's great. I think the other thing I liked is you mentioned these morsels of value, of being able to deliver. They don't necessarily need to be these massive, like this massive end game or end goal. I
Or
remember
return
when,
on investment. Yeah, it's not like the
yeah,
full return on investment has been
yeah.
delivered.
I remember what we made a change that came in within Client Success is we had this onboarding flow that had all these integrations, the integrations and data flowing and kind of everything set up. And then it was like, all right, now we can provide value. And we came to the realization, like, we can provide this a morsel of value right from the beginning, and maybe delay some of the integrations and just have them complete this one little thing. And this was related to a feature in our product called Pulse, which is customer sentiment. And we said, let's actually have them update a Pulse for every customer first, even before we do integrations and some of these things, because we knew that first view of Pulse was a small but very significant view that they had never seen before. And so this
And
concept of like,
what impact did that have?
just that we were able to immediately have the CSMs, their leaders, and the executives see a view of their customers that they had never seen before immediately, even before all the rest of the implementation was done. And it gave us it propelled us and gave us this momentum of excitement of like, oh yeah, this is what we thought we were going to buy.
Right.
We already have this really quick. We can't wait to see the rest, and can't wait to benefit from the rest of the platform.
That's great.
So that was a cool thing that I thought went well with your thought about morsels of value.
Thank you. So we have a question from Taylor about, well, what if the integration ability was the selling point? So I'd like to address that in an example I'm going to give in a little while. Okay, great.
Yeah.
How long does it take to start getting the pulse out?
It could be as quick as like an afternoon of
that's
CSMs
awesome.
updating it for their customers.
I mean, if you think about it, Dave, like, as consumers, as general, people, we're used to automatic instant gratification.
Yeah.
And, I order things on online and I want them instantaneously. So, every single person that we work with is a consumer in their personal lives and has those type of expectations now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on and we're going to answer a lot of your questions along the way. Okay, so let's look at some common onboarding pitfalls. When we don't deliver value, your customers ghost you. So anyone raise your hand or type in yes, or type in the word ghost if you are seeing customers are ghosting you. People often ask me, yes, boo. People often ask me, how do we get customers to stop ghosting us? The most important thing is to deliver value, because every time you deliver value, your customers get an endorphin hit. So we're talking about the neuroscience of onboarding. Every time they get an endorphin hit, it's a feel-good chemical that goes off in their brain. They're going to be thrilled and they're going to want to meet with you. They're going to want to use your product. So to stop ghosting, you need to deliver meaningful value. And we'll talk more about what that means. Then I see a lot of customer success and a lot of customer onboarding teams are stuck in a high touch approach. They treat every customer with special care. I call it the special snowflake syndrome. And that might feel good, but it's costing your company a lot of money. And it means you might have a backlog for deployments. And, a lot of companies are very cost conscious these days. And the longer it takes to onboard your customers and the more special care you give them, it means you can't scale and you're delaying any break even or profit margins for your company. This is really important. And then another big thing is these monolithic deployments. So product development has moved to very agile and iterative product development and releases. and yet the deployments are monolithic. So I would really like to see phased deployments. I'm not seeing much of this yet, but just like what you were talking about, you don't have to do everything all at once, but can you delay some of the things like integrations to get to some initial value? And so what happens is your customers fall into this trough of disillusionment. They're really excited during the buyer journey, but once the deal is sold and they sit around waiting and wondering and, oh, great, I have a product to log into, but I don't know how it's going to make my life better. It feels like it's going to just be another burden to figure this out. Then they get disillusionment, they get disillusioned. And so sometimes they will pause and cancel their subscriptions when they're in this trough. Or I've heard other people call it the valley of despair. And so if they stick around, yeah, you can like help them get to value realization, but if they don't, then you have lost a lot of money during that beginning. If you look at not just your churn numbers, but when churn happens, if customers are churning in the first year, it's because they failed to launch. It's because they never obtained value from your product. So we need to avoid that. And then the great news is that a lot more people are defining first value and measuring it. But what I've heard more recently is there's the value cliff. So they're giving customers all that special care. They're being teams are being measured by the time to first value. So they're pouring all this attention to ensure they hit that first value number. And then they're like, all right, see ya. And then customers are like blindsided and going, what happened? I thought you loved me and now you're gone. So we're calling that the first value cliff. So Dave, I'd love to hear what you're seeing around those common pitfalls.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, this resonates really well. In fact, a Pulse update from my team this morning was one of our customers who they were saying is just kind of just hasn't had the time and hasn't been engaged in the onboarding, and they was concerned about that. And I think that's a common thing. We need to recognize our customers are busy as well. And so I always feel like that one thing we don't do is try to build this joint accountability between us and the customers. And one of our strategic CSMs, Matt Jolly, did a really good job, I thought, where they would lay out the key next milestones that were required for it to get the next phase of the onboarding done. And he had a very good way of tactfully holding the customer accountable. Meaning, like when they came back on a call, to be able to say, hey, we here was the plan last week. We were able to do that. It looks like you weren't able to achieve this. When can you have that done by? And holding them accountable in a very tactful way. And I think that's a good way of keeping the progress going. Sometimes addressing some of the ghosting that happens out there. And building this mutual respect of like pushing the progress forward. So
excellent. Now I do want to address there's some comments about how do you keep everyone on track when you have multiple products being implemented in parallel, and also customer accountability you brought up. Those are great things to use a tool like Baton for onboarding. When you can keep see who's all doing what stage, what products. And it's also a great way to keep customers engaged and accountable because you can assign tasks to them. So that's a way for them to see their part and that they're part of the team and not just to be sitting around and waiting for everything to be done for them.
Yeah, I have a question here from Hannah who says, do you let customers decide what value means or present milestones determined by you based on what an ideal customer is? So are you asking the customer for their definition of value, or do you present a predefined a value list, if you will, and ask the customer to align with what are the value props from your product? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, so ideally, if you're asking every customer what the value is, then that would kind of lead you more to that special snowflakes.
Yes.
And sometimes your product is really like all your customers really are special snowflakes. And if that's the case, yes, you would do that, but you would need to be charging for onboarding because it's going to be more, high touch and white glove treatment. What I would recommend if you don't know what first value is is to start interviewing your customers and find out what is that aha moment or magic moment. Now, for example, Facebook, when they first launched, they realized the magic moment is when a user has 10 or more friends. When they start having 10 friends in Facebook, then it's like, oh, I get it. I have a community, right? If I'm in Facebook by myself, I'm going to be like, I don't get this. I'm posting, but so what? But once I have a community on Facebook, then I'm posting and I'm interacting and I'm seeing what other people are up to. So ideally, I like to look at the 80-20 rule, like what is the main path for the majority? So ideally, interview your customers. You might interview them by segment or by product. Don't try to do everything start with everything for everyone. But let's say you start with one segment or one product and find out, you'll start to hear common threads. Or maybe if it's not just one thing, maybe you have like 3 things. So then you might say to a customer, here's our a la carte menu of 3 options. Which first value would you like to start with? It doesn't mean that's all the value they're getting. I did that with a company. We had 3 kind of first value pathways. And then we asked them as part of the success plan and kickoff meeting, we'd have that discussion. And then that would set them off. We had a learning pathway for each first value option. And then we had the customer success managers would work with them to obtain that. It doesn't mean like, it's like ordering my appetizer at a meal. It doesn't mean that the whole meal's been delivered and digested and paid for. It means that I've obtained some first value and I've selected that. Or sometimes you go to a restaurant and they serve you an amuse-bouche or a little taster to kind of whet your appetite and keep you engaged, right? So think of it first value options as that in that way.
Yeah, no, I love that. We do a similar thing here at Client Success. We have a clear understanding of what the typical value props or of our platform are, and we just present those to the customer and we say, here are typically what they do. What are the top 3 that you're looking for? And that's proven to be very helpful to really guide them rather than having an open-ended question that you can get so many different answers or not an answer at all. So I love that.
Yeah, just like Christy is saying, sometimes they don't know and you need to guide them. The thing is, customer-facing teams, you are the experts. You've worked with other companies, you know your product, so you can be the guide. Like, let's say I hired Dave to be my personal trainer and I show up and he's like, hey, what exercises do you feel like doing today? I might say, you know what? I just want to go for a coffee. I had a late night. And I'm looking for Dave to guide me and say, hey, we're going to start with some lunges and some cycling to warm your body up. I'm paying Dave to tell me what to do, right? And sometimes I'm paying Dave to kick my butt so I get results. And sometimes I might wake up annoyed at Dave because I'm sore, but I'm going to get those results.
Exactly. I love that analogy.
All right, let's move on. Got a lot of great engagement. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so let's look at accelerating time to value. So how do you deliver value? The value is delivered in days or weeks, maybe at the most, I would say 60 days at the most if you have a really complex product. And you're delivering achievable morsels or nuggets of value. And it's a way that you can commemorate wins along the journey. It's really important you start getting wins right away. Just like if I was working out with Dave and never saw any changes, I'm going to give up pretty soon, right? I like to also look at it as changing the concepts, contexts, and mindsets. So even before your product is live, you can start to deliver some value, and I'll share some examples in a moment. The benefits are you get those endorphin hits we've talked about. Customers are more engaged. They're going to be celebrating rather than despairing in that trough. The customer, the buyers look good. The teams using your product look good. Like, that's really important. And it will reduce churn and increase your revenue. So here are some 3 examples of first value. Strategic coaching. Now, this was a company where they have a marketing platform for real estate agents. And what they were doing was they were waiting until the product went live to deliver strategic coaching. They already did this. The CSMs were engaging, but while the product was being implemented, customers were pausing and canceling their subscriptions. It was they were losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So all we did was we moved this strategic coaching into the first week And so while they had 4 weeks of strategic coaching, so while the product was being implemented in the background, they were getting all of this strategic coaching, it's helping them to change their mindset. And so then once they had the login, they could be off and running rather than starting from scratch. Now, this company, somebody asked earlier about, well, what if the value is your integrations, Dave, right? But this company, I asked them, well, what is value? What value are you delivering? And it was a big conversation with the founders and the executives, because they're like, yeah, what is the value? Our platform is actually quite similar to our competitors. But what set them apart was they provided all the strategic coaching. So it wasn't something that they were just delivering. It also needed to be into the marketing and sales messaging, that this is what set them apart. They really are for premium real estate agents, and they provide all this high touch. So that needs to not just be delivered, it needs to be marketed and sold. Also, can you look at it an initial use case to deliver? Now, this company is based in the UK. It's a big data platform, and they were taking 6 months to go live to deliver some initial value, which was all of the data was in production. And I'm like, well, what does all the data in production mean? That sounds like a lot. So we looked at, well, can we deliver the first use case or the first data set? And we determined we could do that in 60 days or less. So rather than waiting 6 months, we get that first use case delivered. And now we can go to the next use case, the next use case, the next data set. And now we have a value journey, and customers aren't just sitting around hoping and wondering. And then another one, this was a company, it's a CRM platform in Eastern Europe. They were trying to be everything for everyone and doing this highly customizable platform. And instead, we realized we needed to roll out personas. And rather than waiting 4 months, and again, customers were often canceling by the time they got a login, we rolled out different modules for different personas, like the sales module, the HR module, the marketing module. We could do that in 2 weeks. And now they have infinite upsell opportunities to sell the next module, the next persona, but they can get to value, and their sales cycle is like 2 weeks. And nobody wants to spend 2 weeks buying and then 4 months waiting around and implementing. So the shorter your sales cycle is, the faster you need to deliver value. Anything you want to add there, Dave?
No, I just love, I think there's a lot of questions about like, how do I do this if I have this big, long, bulky implementation? Some are saying, hey, we're suggesting a max of 6 days to deliver first value, but what if the integration lasts 4 months? And I,
Well,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, yeah, then you need to deliver value that is not related to the integration. Or what another thing I do with companies. So what I do is I help companies deliver value to their customers more quickly, and I help them create an orchestrated, proactive, prescriptive onboarding approach. And so let's say there's these integrations that need to take place. What we do is we start during the buyer journey, we start telling them you're going to need to do these integrations. If something's going to take 3 weeks, we try to get them to start that even before we do the kickoff. So then we don't do a kickoff and we're all just sitting around for 3 weeks waiting for something. One company I worked with, they have like health, they had to integrate with all these health systems, health tech company. And so we started telling customers, you need to start setting this up or getting all the information even before the deal's closed so we can move swiftly. And then that means the faster you can recognize revenue. But yes, this is not in isolation. You might need to adjust how you recognize revenue. You might need to adjust how the product is sold. You might need to adjust how you onboard customers. You might need to adjust how you communicate with customers. You might need to adjust how the sales team interact with customers. It's not just one person's onboarding team's job, but delivering value is critical to the business bottom line.
Yeah, and I think the key message there is that we tend to think of delivering value through our product, and therefore the implementation and all these integrations need to be done to deliver through the product. But we should start to think about delivering value even outside of the product as a partner, consultative value, insightful value, best practices value, while some of those other things could be going in parallel. That
Yeah,
could be
in
a
my
change of
orchestrated
mindset.
onboarding masterclass, we were talking about this,
Yeah,
and one company, they do software for construction companies, quite complex, but they realized, well, wow, in the kickoff meeting, we can have them set up their first construction project.
yeah,
Another company, they do like job descriptions for academic institutions for the students. And they realized, wow, during the kickoff meeting, we can have them post their first job description. So
yeah.
you might then say, hey, during the buyer journey, get your first job description ready. So they can be these little morsels that visually, tangibly, people can like get some like, woohoo, we're glad we bought your product.
Very good.
Okay, so we're going to move on. Thank you all for your awesome questions and input. All right, now the thing is, you also need to think about value for each persona, and this is jobs to be done. Type in JTBD if you know about jobs to be done. This means it's not about your product. Now, thing is, jobs are technology agnostic, and customers are loyal to their jobs, not to you or your product. So, for example, I have my big mug of tea here. It's not just a beverage. It's not just caffeine. It's like warming my belly on a cold morning. It kind of keeps me company. It quenches my thirst. It kind of keeps it also satiates my hunger. So that mug of tea is doing a lot of jobs for me. So the thing is, we hire anything we use to do a job for us. And now this is the journey of the job for music. Now, back in the old days, the only way you could listen to music was in a live, setting, right? You could only see if people were playing instruments in front of you. And then throughout our humanity, then we moved to listening on, hand crank, what do we call phonographs. And then we went to these big receivers. Anyone remember boom boxes? Then we went to Walkmans and Discmans, and then the iPod. And now, when the iPod came out, they said like 1,000 songs in your pocket or something like that. Now I can stream the whole world of music on my phone. Now the job has remained the same, listening to music, but the technology has changed dramatically, and it will probably change again. So we need to remember that, like, for example, I'm working with a company and they provide technology, practice management software for dental practices. And the thing is, these dental practices have been checking people's teeth, making appointments, and logging insurance requests for decades. They've done it on pen and paper, they've done it on spreadsheets. And so if your product is not, if they don't know how to use it, if you haven't made it clear, they're going to revert to what is familiar because the job remains the same and your technology needs to really address the jobs that each persona is doing, not just, great, you've got a solution here. Anything you want to add, Dave?
No, I love this concept, but Jim, if for those who haven't read that book, read the book, and it's a really good book.
Yeah, and I saw Jim speak at CS 100
Yeah,
several
yeah,
years ago.
he was a speaker.
And then so you need to avoid that first value cliff, and that's where you want to start creating these. Let me just see. Oh, I don't. I took that slide out. But rather than the trough of disillusionment, we create a value journey, and so there's no trough to fall into. There's no cliff to fall off. You deliver initial value, then you deliver ongoing value, and that may mean that they keep looping back to an onboarding team, or maybe you define a way for the customer success teams to keep delivering morsels of value. Maybe it can be self-paced or on demand through learning pathways and a learning management system. Maybe you create a whole set of campaigns with your customer marketing teams, but you need to keep delivering value. Just because you've gone live does not mean that that you're done. So a phased approach, whether you can phase the deployment or at least start delivering value or start integrating components and demonstrate some value there. If you really have to wait for everything to go live, then I recommend starting with that mindset, concept shift, and concept shifting. I've worked with a lot of companies where they have sophisticated tools, but the customers keep reverting to spreadsheets because that's what they're familiar with. So sometimes you have to really help them, shift into a different landscape, different terminology, different workflows, different best practices so that they're ready to really seize your solution.
Yeah, Donna, I often say that if you have a recurring revenue business, you have to provide recurring value. It's not a one-time thing. You have
Yes.
to continue to do it over and over again, as you've said.
So I have my orchestrated onboarding framework, which implements these best practices. It has these different stages where we really set customers up for success during the buyer journey. We really help them see, yes, we have a journey ahead. We're not just going live with the product. This is where you're accountable. This is your responsibility. If there's all these different milestones, we help them see the journey ahead. And then we really help them with not just product deployment, but adoption. And then there's this ongoing onboarding here. And I do, coaching, I teach classes, I do consulting engagements. So if you're looking for more help, just let me know. I'm happy to keep chatting. And I also have a tool here to help you start learning from your customers. This is 6 questions to ask recently onboarded customers. And you can ask them, hey, what does value mean to you? But I heard about I was at a conference and they were talking about ABC, which stands for always be closing in the sales world.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, what can we use for in the customer success world? Always be customer centric or always be listening to your customers. So if you don't know what value is or your value is very product centric, start listening to customers. Okay, so let's pause there. I just have a few slides to wrap up, but let's have a look at all the questions coming through.
Yeah, a couple quick questions that we have. One is if Abby's asking, how do you scale onboarding if you have limited resources? How do you deliver this at scale? That's probably a whole nother webinar, but just any quick thoughts, Donna, that about scaling customer onboarding and delivering?
Yeah, absolutely. You cannot. You have to really look at, well, what is the main route? When companies think that every customer is unique, I say I really challenge that.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a foundational onboarding you can take most of your customers along, and then they can start veering off into what's their differences are. But you really need to keep those differences as the outliers. You can't scale if every customer is unique. And if every customer truly is unique, then you need to be charging a premium to your customers for the premium service that you're providing them. Otherwise, we really look at what are some of the repeatable things that people are doing over and over. For example, I worked with a company where the customer success managers were all doing the training for customers. And I got to tell you, Dave, they were exhausted because not only did they do initial training, but anytime customers needed to do something, they were like, hey, Dave, can you show me how to do that again? Oh, hey, Dave, I got a new person on my team. Can you show them how to do it? They were fried, burnt out. And so what we did was we built we implemented a learning management system and we built out their first learning pathway for 2 personas. These were the end users and the administrators. And so then the customer success managers can focus on what's unique for each customer and really be strategic.
Yeah. We have a partner actually based in here in Utah, like a Brainstorm that does those kind of capabilities.
The Brainstorm's great. Yeah.
Learning management to whether you can build these repeatable knowledge nuggets, if you will, and share them with your customers to be able to do it on demand.
Can I jump in? Another way is
Yeah.
consider, it depends on your product, but consider like, can you onboard customers in cohorts? Like,
Yeah.
does it all really have to be one customer at a time?
Yeah.
I've worked with companies where their products are very seasonal, like academic technology or technology for kind of outdoor adventures. So they have seasons. And so there's no way you can onboard one by one. So sometimes onboarding in a cohort, and customers love learning from each other.
Yeah.
and seeing what other people are doing. So that can be a really great opportunity as well.
That's great. A question from Nicole. Thank you, Nicole. She's saying, if your CS team is trying to get internal buy-in from your peers and colleagues in other departments to improve the onboarding experience, but are kind of getting a little bit of resistance, what's the way to convince them and build the case to change broken or disjointed onboarding processes?
Well, there's a few things. One is that I learned, as much as I might say, hey, I learned this at this conference, I learned this at this webinar, that sometimes people just don't want to listen to internally to
Yeah,
you. So one, you can bring in external experts. Two, listen to your customers.
yeah,
I was at a company where I was an employee and I had ideas, nobody really cared. Well, I started interviewing customers. I talked to 10 customers. And when I started sharing their direct feedback, that's when things really started to change. And then the third thing is really get results. Don't just say, hey, we need handoff meetings. But if you can show, you know what? Hey, Dave, we notice every time we have a handoff meeting, the onboarding time is reduced by 17% because customers are more prepared and the internal teams are more prepared. You need to show the data, the impact on the business, and what's in it for me for, let's say, the sales team. So it's all about results and your customers.
yeah. I'm a big believer of exposing the customers or introducing the customers. Let's put it that way to the other team members and hear it directly from them. So maybe get some of these other leaders on a call, asking the customers to give their feedback about their onboarding experience. And hopefully there's some direct feedback that helps them understand that you need to improve, that you're falling short, and also amplifying the positive things that are happening. But the customer voice is always the strongest voice, I believe. Raphael's asking, they have a separate implementation team. So after when the deal is closed, it's introduced directly to the implementation team before the customer success team. And a lot of times customers are hitting that trough of disillusionment during that implementation. Raphael's asking, should CSMs be introduced earlier to help build that first value?
Yeah, so I have done that.
Yeah,
So for example, at that platform for the real estate agents, the CSMs weren't introduced till after the implementation, and it was just it was not working. So we had the CSMs come in first. I often like to have the CSMs come in, especially for a longer implementation,
yeah,
have them define a success plan, really help them see the big picture and build that trust and strategic relationship. And then they can bring in the onboarding or implementation team. They might be in the background and then fully engage after implementation. But the customer needs to see the big picture. That's why I have 6 stages to my onboarding framework. And the first two are big picture, strategic relationship building. We don't get to really the kickoff and the implementation till stages 3 and 4.
yeah,
And so you really do need to have that. Also, what happens is when the implementation team is engaged first, customers keep coming back to them. Oh, Dave, can you just help me with that? Oh, Dave, can you just help sort this out? And so then the implementation teams are being measured about time to onboarding or time to first value, and they're busy engaged with all these existing customers. And so what we want is the customers to like latch onto, to anchor on to the long-term person, and not like the implementation manager is like the surgeon who needs to come in and get the job done and get out. They're not the general practitioner that you're going to kind of see regularly throughout your health journey. So we want to so in that case, we want to anchor them on that CSM.
I love that as well. I'm a big fan of introducing the CSM up front and introduce them. I use the term kind of the shepherd. They're here to shepherd you throughout the entire customer journey, but every once in a while, we're bringing in experts, including your implementation manager here, who will take this phase of the customer journey for you. But
And it's
I'll be here.
okay.
Yes.
It's okay to introduce different people
Yeah.
as long as you promote it as delivering value. To go back to that trainer analogy, let's say I'm working out with Dave and I have a goal. I kayak,
Yeah.
And I have a goal. I've got a kayak slalom race coming up, and Dave doesn't know anything about kayaking. So maybe I go in to work out with Dave, but he's brought in a specialist who knows about kayaking because he knows what my goals are.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge value. So we do a little handoff and I work with a specialist and then we go back to Dave. That's great. It's about how you handle it.
Yeah.
Then bring it. Don't worry about how many people you bring in. It's about setting it up and delivering value.
That's great. Quick question from Claudia. What if you have third-party implementers um, who are crucial to delivering first value, but maybe aren't approaching it the way that you would like? Is there any guidance on how do you?
They need to be partners. I mean, if you're
Yeah,
building out this great onboarding approach and delivering value and they're not doing any of that, then I would start, helping them to be measured by those numbers as well.
I love that as well. Okay, any other thoughts that you have, Donna? Let's see. We've got a couple more questions. You want to keep going on some questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jonna, how do you avoid onboarding team getting too stretched? We get utilized to show value during pre-sales phase. We're responsible for technical implementation, change management, end user communication.
Yeah, well, then you might
How do you
need
do that?
to, I would need to talk more about understanding the structure of your teams, but I believe the onboarding team needs to be like those surgeons. So if you're getting pulled in everywhere for everything, then that's really going to impact your first value delivery, your onboarding timeframes. So yes, you need to like get really clear about what your roles and responsibilities are. And then not saying that all those other things aren't important. But then if you're being measured, if those are, then you need to be measured by that and you need to find out how you can get additional folks on your team or look at how you can do those in a more of a scalable one-to-many way.
Very well said. Debbie's asking. They say they've segmented their customers by high touch, mid touch, and tech touch. How do we show value early for mid or tech touch CSMs who don't spend as much time? And I like what you said earlier. Was sometimes you can deliver common value attributes or results or wows across those and try to optimize or scale these standard value milestones or anything else you would add there.
Yeah, so in a mid-touch, you might look at that cohort, onboarding and value delivery. I mean, value shouldn't be different if it's a high touch, low touch, or tech touch.
Yeah.
If I am logging in and trying a new product, I need to be able to obtain value. I mean, I've got my phone here, and if I download a new app, if I'm not obtaining some value in moments, I'm gonna delete it, right? I was just
Yeah.
going through my phone the other day deleting apps that I haven't used or never used. So then, like, imagine with a tech touch, there needs to be some journey in the app where maybe I get a little confetti, or a little badge, or I've done something that goes woohoo like that. I'm going, oh, I'm glad I downloaded this. There was a tool, I was just in Japan for vacation, and there's this one app our friend told us to download, and it was all in Japanese. And I'm like, what? But actually, I had to add it to my Apple Wallet, and then it helped me I could tag on and off for the subways
Yeah.
and the trains everywhere, and it was amazing value. But initially, I just saw a bunch of Japanese. I had no idea what to do with it. So yes, you need to then, if it's tech touch, you better deliver some value in a self-paced way.
Yeah, that's great. Alba's asking, are there key metrics that onboarding teams should always have on their dashboard? Is there one or two key metrics, or is it really just dependent on your business and the value props you're trying to achieve?
Well, I would like to look at how long onboarding is taking. Like,
Yeah,
do you know that onboarding is done? Can you check the box? Do your customers know that it's done? Like, or are they just going, what? So how long does onboarding take? And then I would want to look at how we can reduce the time to onboard.
yeah,
And then first value, those are two that I would start with. Have we defined first value and how long does that take? And can we reduce that time?
that's great. Yeah, I know. And like in our product baton, that's a key metric that we always look at and our customers look at. is the days to onboard and trying to optimize that. And I think that there's also really important, and this isn't a metric, but just something to do is once the onboarding is done, ask your customers about the onboarding experience. Don't forget, like we talked about before, is customers are their insights are so critical. And so find out a way to survey them, interview them, and really try to understand how the experience is and
Yeah,
take those
and that's where,
put it back
uh,
in.
yeah, that's exactly where I'm going to share my screen. Those the 6 questions to ask recently onboarded customers.
Yeah.
That's what, if you go here, and that
Yep.
can take 20 minutes. And the goal is to ask open-ended questions and then listen.
Love it. Love it.
All right. So go ahead and
Okay.
grab that. I do want to just add a couple key takeaways. You might want to, we'll send the recording and but if you want to screenshot or take a photo, these are your key takeaways and next steps. You want to remember that onboarding is the most important part of the customer journey. It's more than implementing your product. You must deliver meaningful values to customers in each persona as quickly as possible. And if you don't know what that is, then you start on a journey to learn about that. And if the value you're hearing from your customers is dramatically different than what sales and marketing talk about, then there's a bigger discussion to have internally, and you could share that feedback. And then avoid that first value cliff with a value journey. And the action item is to start learning from your customers with those 6 questions here. And then I always like to ask you, how will you transform your customer's business? It's not about going live with your product. People want transformation. If I work out with Dave, I want transformation, right? If I buy something, I need transformation, personal transformation, professional. So I want you to think about that, not just going live with my product. So don't just dwell on the technology. Remember, we're working with people who are wired to resist. So we need to build trust and deliver value as quickly as possible. And then I'd love to stay connected. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can reach out. I do provide coaching sessions if you want to dive in more deeply to your particular scenarios, and love to stay connected and let me know how I can help you.
Great. Thank you so much, Donna. This was super impactful and a lot of takeaways and learnings. So grateful for you sharing your experience, your thought leadership, and your passion for this topic. And
Oh,
thanks,
thank you.
you bet. And thanks to everybody else who's joined. This was such an engaging conversation, Donna.
Oh my God, it went so
Truly,
fast.
right? I know it went fast, but everybody, thank you for joining us today. We had a lot of fun, Donna. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with you, and I love just hearing your best practices. So thanks for joining today.
Oh, thank you. And it looks like everyone, thank you all for your great engagement and all your valuable questions and comments.
All
Happy
right.
holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone. Again, from Dave, I'm Dave Blake, founder and CEO of ClientSuccess. From the team at ClientSuccess, thank you for joining us this week and every week. We're actually off for a couple weeks as we get closer to the holidays. We don't have a webinar, but we are starting up. We've got some great new webinars coming in the beginning of the year. And so watch for the promotions for those new webinars. January will be a series of special guests that will be joining us. And February, we're doing our special boot camps again. Christy Falcheruso, our Chief Customer Officer, is preparing another a series of 4 boot camps. And for those who have joined us in the past, for those, you know, they are super impactful and super interesting. And Christy does an amazing job. So have a great holiday. Make some memories with families and friends. And please reach out to the team at ClientSuccess if we can help you either with a solution or help you with any of your customer success or customer onboarding needs. It's clientsuccess.com. And again, I'm Dave Blake, founder and CEO of ClientSuccess. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us, everyone.